are the key takeaways for you?
To me, the key takeaway is that the world has changed a lot, and the regulatory system has not kept up with it. Clearly Congress is going to do its thing, which is just trying to get attention and headlines, and the very fact that we're talking about them makes them happy. Robinhood and Reddit and everyone else are trying to stay out of trouble as much as they can, and there is blame to go around. But ultimately, we have a financial system that was designed for an institutional world that's existed for decades and decades that didn't really think about the internet. And now we have, apps like Robinhood, information processes like Reddit and Twitter, the ability for people to share information and make trades in nanoseconds. If you put all that together, the nature of retail investing is going to change. It has changed, and it's the responsibility of the SEC and others to keep up with it.
Do you think it does put more pressure for maybe more regulation around the Twitters, the Reddits that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, some of it might be around the Twitters and the Reddits, but some of it might also just be around the rules governing the process. So, for example, the two-day rule around settlements, that probably made sense at a certain point, but the world probably operated in a much slower fashion, and now that things are moving really, really quickly and retail investors are able to have access to this kind of information and market power, if Robinhood didn't have to wait as long, and I'm not defending Robinhood per se, but if they didn't have to wait as long, then maybe they would have been able to halt trading for less time, or if they didn't have the same liquidity requirements. So, I just think that the rules haven't caught up. So look, I think there is going to be regulation of platforms like Twitter simply because Congress has all kinds of other issues with them politically. But I'm not sure that they're really the culprit here.
All right, it is music to my ears when you mentioned T+2 settlements. So let's dive into it, because this is a technology show, right? And you brought up, rightfully so, the point that the technology has not kept up in some ways, like T+2. It was Ken Griffin of Citadel saying a few years ago we had T+5, we have T+2. Why aren't we at T+1? And how realistic is it that we at least get there on the path to real-time settlement?
Yeah, I mean, we should be. And the reason that we're not is it's a failure of government. So by definition, regulation always lags innovation, because first someone has to come up with the innovation and think of it, and then regulators have to realize that happened and then try to deal with it. So there's always going to be a gap, and that's okay. But the gap can't be indefinite or interminable. And at a certain point, it's pretty predictable that as the markets are moving, as apps like Robinhood are gaining more and more popularity, as people on platforms like Reddit are paying more and more attention, you put all that together, and clearly the rules that made sense even 5 years ago don't necessarily make sense today. The SEC should have done a better job. They did not. We now have a new administration, a new SEC, and it's incumbent on them to step up.
How does Robinhood look coming out of this?
I mean, obviously not great. I think, to me, the fault for them wasn't so much that they didn't anticipate this one thing happening, because, as you said in the clip, it was a 1 in 3.5 million chance of something like this taking place. But they marketed themselves literally in their name as the platform for the little guy, right? We're the way that the average Joe who wants to get involved and make money on the stock market can have access and can trade and be treated just as well as the client of a really big investment bank. And then when push came to shove, that didn't really happen. Part of it was because they didn't anticipate what could go wrong. Part of it's because the rules are outdated. But at the end of the day, people either lost money or lost opportunity to make money because Robinhood couldn't really deliver and execute on its promise.
We still have 2 more hearings of these, which we were told about. And I am curious, what would you like to hear? What further clarity would be helpful in some of the next 2 hearings?
I would like to see, look, the better theater, obviously, is getting the head of Reddit or Twitter or Robinhood up there and screaming at them. So I get that. But in reality, even though it's kind of boring, I'd like to see Department of Treasury officials and SEC officials and CFTC officials and all the different agencies that are responsible for updating the rules so that they reflect the world we live in right now. And if Congress was really concerned with getting this right as opposed to getting headlines, that's who they'd be talking to.